My son said, "Mom, the best gift under the tree would be an urn with your ashes." I stayed silent, didn't cry, didn't argue. The next day, I cut off every account, changed every password, and disappeared. But I didn't leave him empty-handed. Under the tree, I left one final gift, a neat envelope tied with ribbon. Inside, a list of every dollar he'd stolen, every wire transfer I could reverse, every fraud report I'd already filed. It wasn't my ashes he'd find that Christmas. It was the end of his empire. Most people forget who I was before I became just mom. But I never did. I'm Evelyn Brooks, 72 years old, retired bookkeeper, widow, quiet on the outside, because that's how you survive men who think they're smarter than you. I met my husband Thomas at a local tax prep seminar in 1973. He thought it was cute that I knew my way around IRS Form 8829. I thought it was tragic he didn't know what GAAP stood for. We married anyway, built a modest life, 2 used sedans, 1 shared desktop computer, and 1 son we gave everything to. I buried Thomas 12 winters ago. Stroke. He left me the house, the car, and a small pension. Enough to live, not enough to be careless. So I sharpened up, took on freelance audits, balanced books for small contractors, Etsy shops, even one woman who sold ethical taxidermy. I didn't judge. I just filed the 1099s and kept the math clean. My eyes? Sharp. My hands? Steady. My memory? Photographic. And yet somewhere along the line, Daniel decided I was soft, old, in the way. He married Marissa 10 years ago. A woman so polished and practiced, even her fake apologies came laminated. They never said it directly, but the message was clear. I was optional. Their social photos were all couple brunches, spa weekends, influencer-style parenting posts with Henry. I was a feature of their lives, like the original hardwood floors they complained about but didn't want to pay to replace. They called when they needed help, always money. Never time, but I gave, because that's what mothers are taught to do. $10,000 here, $40,000 there. I co-signed the second mortgage, covered emergency renovations, bought Henry's school uniforms, his allergy meds, his violin. Marissa once said, "You're so generous." Daniel says, "You're basically the bank of mom." She laughed when she said it. I didn't. And maybe that's when it started. The shift, not in them, in me. I realized I'd become a resource, not a person. And I still had one thing they underestimated: my records. Because I kept everything: loan documents, handwritten agreements, screenshots, voicemails, every transfer I made, every lie they told. They thought they were draining me slowly. They didn't know they were building a case. The worst betrayals never show up as headlines. They come in tiny, quiet slices. Like the first time Daniel told me not to bother coming to Henry's birthday party because it'll just be a little thing, nothing formal. Then I saw the pictures. 50 people. A bouncy house. A custom cake taller than Marissa. And not one trace of me. Or the Sunday dinners that used to be a tradition, until Marissa started scheduling them during my church hours. "Oh, we didn't realize you'd still be at St. Luke's," she'd text. "We'll save you a plate." I always said thank you. I always threw it away. They never said I wasn't welcome. They just made sure I never fit in. That's how it works when people want you gone but still need your money. Because while I was being erased socially, they were draining me financially. They called it help. Short-term loans. Marissa had her boutique. She needed startup capital. Daniel's job hit a quote season. They were looking into refinancing, waiting on a tax return, just short on cash this quarter. They always promised to pay me back. $150,000 later, not a single dollar returned. When I gently asked Daniel once, just once, he got quiet, then angry. "Are you seriously going to nickel and dime your own family, Mom?" Nickel and dime. That phrase lodged in my brain like a nail. It echoed in my ears that night when I stared at my bank statements. Because I had itemized every so-called gift. I knew the exact dates, the amounts, the categories they claimed it all under. Their feet were on my neck. I just hadn't noticed until I stopped gasping and finally breathed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. It started with one call. Clara Jennings, attorney, semi-retired, but still sharp enough to make insurance adjusters sweat with one raised eyebrow. We hadn't talked in years, not since the dispute over Thomas's life insurance. But she picked up on the second ring and said, "Evelyn, you sound different." "I am," I said. "I need a consultation. Personal, quiet." She didn't ask why, just gave me a time and a location and told me to bring whatever I didn't trust the mail with. We met at a quiet corner booth of a breakfast place with no cameras and decent coffee. I slid her a folder, 10 pages deep, just a sample. Clara flipped through it, eyebrows rising. "Is this all documented?" "Triple." She let out a low whistle. "This could take down a city council." "I'm not looking for fire," I said. "I'm looking for precision." She closed the folder gently, like it was evidence in a criminal trial. "Then you came to the right woman." My next stop was Dean Abrams. He used to run filings at the local title office, the kind of man who noticed when a signature didn't match or when something was filed just a little too fast. We met during one of Thomas's real estate reviews years back. Dean was the one who caught a bad line in a deed transfer that would have cost us $11,000. I never forgot that. Now he was long retired, soft-spoken, and nearly invisible. Exactly what I needed. "You still know where to find things?" I asked. He didn't answer, just nodded slowly and pulled out a notebook the size of a checkbook. "Give me the scope. I want to know everything with my name on it, or not on it. Any filings, any signatures that don't look like mine. The quieter, the better." Dean smiled faintly, like I'd asked him to solve a crossword puzzle. That's a good use of my week. The last piece was younger, louder, a little dangerous. Rosa Santiago, a legal assistant turned digital bulldog. She'd once interned at Clara's office, and I remembered how she'd stayed late to teach herself deposition software most lawyers didn't even bother with. I reached out. She responded in minutes. "What are we exposing?" she asked. "Financial manipulation, possibly fraud." Her eyes lit up like someone handed her a match and a map to a gasoline leak. "I can trace transactions, clean metadata, build timelines. Want it polished? Or want it viral?" "Both," I said. "Eventually," she grinned. "You just let me know when to flip the switch." 3 people. No drama, no judgment, just skills, memory, loyalty, and me. No longer a forgotten mother. I wasn't outnumbered anymore. I was assembling the board. I waited until the rain hit the windows before I opened the envelope. Inside was a typed letter I'd written to myself. Not out of sentiment, out of discipline. When you're in a war, financial or emotional, you don't wander. You define the goal and you write it down. Because when the guilt starts creeping in, when the family photos start whispering, maybe it's not that bad, you'll need something cold and clear to slap yourself awake. At the top of the page, objective. 1. Reclaim the $150,000 they stole from me. 2. Reclaim my house. Legally, publicly, permanently. 3. Ensure Daniel and Marissa's downfall isn't private. It's witnessed, documented, undeniable. Not revenge, not cruelty. Correction. Because they didn't just take my money. They took my standing. They spoke about me like I was already gone, like a burden that needed processing. And what they didn't realize, what they'd never dreamed, was that I kept every receipt they hoped I lost. This wasn't going to be a quiet exit. This was going to be a reckoning. I called Clara first. "I'm ready to move forward," I said. "You want to sue?" she asked, already opening her laptop. "No, I want to force exposure. That's bigger than a courtroom." She paused. "We'll file where we need to file. But Evelyn, if you want impact, we'll need witnesses. Eyes. Start with probate," I said. "Let them see how far they've taken it." Dean's text came an hour later. Found something unusual in the filings. Maybe important. Bringing printouts. I didn't ask what yet. I'd learn soon enough. Rosa sent me a mock-up, a visual map of the last 5 years of transactions. The lines were color-coded. Blue for direct payments, red for business expenses, black for what she labeled laundered affection. "You're an artist," I told her. "I'm an angry artist," she replied. "And I've seen this story before. It always ends the same, unless someone like you ends it differently." And that was it. The line drawn. No more silent holidays. No more wondering if I'd imagined the manipulation. No more being spoken about like I was furniture gathering dust in a room they already planned to repaint. This time, I wasn't hoping they'd love me again. This time, I was planning to leave them with nothing they didn't earn. Dean showed up at my door with a manila envelope under one arm and a grocery bag in the other. "I brought lemon bars," he said, "and something else." We sat at my kitchen table, the one Marissa always called dated. I poured coffee. He opened the envelope. Inside, a single document. Notice of refinance, D&M Brooks, LLC. I stared at it. The paper wasn't old. The signature date was 6 months ago. My name was nowhere on it, but the address listed? My house. Not Daniel and Marissa's address. Mine. The house Thomas and I bought in 1984. The house I'd paid off by 2011 with bookkeeping money and second-hand shoes. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. Dean didn't speak for a moment, just pointed to the filing number. They formed a limited liability company 6 months ago. Used it to move equity out of this property into a business account. Quiet. Legal on paper. Fraud in reality. "I never signed anything," I said. He nodded. "They didn't need you to. They claimed power of attorney. Claimed you were no longer competent. Medical attestation was attached. Not notarized. Not reviewed." I felt something cold settle under my ribs. Not shock. Clarity. I hadn't just been erased socially. They were trying to erase me legally. Why wouldn't the bank alert me? Because the LLC was listed as partial owner in a prior update. That's how they slipped it through. You probably signed something back when you were just helping them refinance, remember? I did, 2 years ago. Daniel had said, "We need you on the paperwork so we can secure a better rate." Just a formality. A formality that gave them access. That opened the door. That let them move in and prepare for my exit. "Who's listed on the LLC?" I asked, voice like ice. He turned the page. Daniel Brooks. Marissa Brooks. No mention of Evelyn. I stood and walked to the cabinet, pulled out the file I'd already marked LLC suspicion hypothetical. Now it had a companion. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. They didn't just plan to take what I had. They planned to make sure no one ever knew it had been mine in the first place. But now I had the first breadcrumb. And I was going to follow it straight through their web. I started with the boutique, because that's where she told the prettiest lies. M. Brooks Interiors. She always made it sound like a dream, a calling. But the truth was simpler. It was a front, built with my money and padded with fiction. For years, she played the struggling entrepreneur, wringing her hands about overhead, supply chain issues, seasonal dips. I paid her invoices with the guilt they spoon-fed me. "Just until we stabilize, Evelyn. You're the only reason we're still afloat." Turns out, she was floating just fine. I was the one drowning. Rosa came over in leggings and a hoodie, eyes lit up like she'd been waiting all week for this. I showed her the boutique's bank statements. Marissa wasn't careful. She was arrogant. Rosa sat down beside me, already typing. "Okay," she said. "Walk me through what they told you." I laid out the story. Emergency renovations. A burst pipe. Broken shelving. A vendor from Denver who needed to be paid upfront. Rosa pulled up the actual expenses. We compared the boutique's renovation invoices to the business registry and credit card records. $3,800 for custom upholstery, charged at a luxury home goods store 2 states away. $5,200 to Ren and Ash Interiors? No such vendor exists. $1,400 for storefront display materials? Same day as a private spa booking under Marissa's name. My stomach turned. "You okay?" Rosa asked, glancing at me. I nodded slowly. "I'm just realizing I didn't raise a son. I raised an accomplice." She didn't speak, just reached for my hand. Strong, steady, no pity. "I'm going to show you something," she said, and turned her laptop toward me. 3 timelines, personal transfers, from me to them. Boutique expenses, real versus fabricated, LLC activity, refinance dates, filings, redirections. Lines connected everything. Red for fraud, black for theft, dotted for suspicion. I stared at it, not like a spreadsheet, like a map of betrayal. Rosa leaned back, satisfied. "We can wrap this clean for Clara, or we can sharpen it for the public. What do you recommend?" I asked. She smiled. "Both." I closed my eyes for a moment. Thought of every time they told me I was confused. Every time they made me doubt my own memory. They thought I'd lost my mind. What I'd actually found was evidence. This wasn't revenge. This was bookkeeping. And I'd just balanced the first account. I always knew Marissa couldn't resist an audience. She doesn't whisper, she broadcasts. So I wasn't surprised when Rosa texted me a screenshot from her phone with the caption, "You're gonna love this." It was a social media post, Marissa's public profile, naturally, under a filtered selfie of her holding a glass of wine in my living room, my curtains in the background. My house. At a certain point, you have to step in when your parents can't manage things anymore. Financial decline, memory problems. It's sad, but it happens. We're doing the best we can, even if she doesn't see it that way. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I was shocked, because I was grateful. "You want humiliation?" I whispered. "You just handed it to me in 4K. Clara called me that afternoon. "Just saw it. You want to know how we use this? Tell me." We print it. We timestamp it. We enter it as evidence of public misrepresentation and intent to defame. She mentioned finances and memory, which makes it admissible and dangerous. It's a false claim tied to her financial control of your estate. That's elder fraud, Evelyn. That word elder used to sting. Not anymore. Now it was a shield. Now it was leverage. I opened my photo drawer, the real kind, paper, not digital. Pulled out the picture of me at Henry's school science fair 3 months ago, standing next to his volcano project, explaining photosynthesis to a group of second graders because the teacher asked for help. Memory problems. Huh? Behind that picture was the printout from my yoga studio's attendance app. Every week, checked in on time. Below that, my tax filings. Complete. Clean. Filed solo. They wanted to paint me as fading, but I had more mental clarity than either of them had moral integrity. Rosa was already 2 steps ahead. She's getting shredded in the comments, she told me on a video call, mostly older women. A few said, "My mom lives with me. I'd never post something like this." One even said, "Shame on you. You wanted the house." I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not rage. Not grief. Momentum. They were overplaying their hand, counting on me to break. But I wasn't brittle anymore. I was forged. The email subject line was short. "I think we need to talk. Olivia." I didn't recognize the name at first, but the moment I opened the message, it clicked. Olivia Ramsey, one of Marissa's old boutique partners, the one she used to call too emotional to do business with. Funny, that emotional woman was the only one with the spine to reach out. "Mrs. Brooks, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to work with Marissa. We started the boutique together. I left last year after she did something I couldn't ignore. I saw the post about you. It made me sick. You deserve to know what she did to you, and to me. Attached is an email Marissa accidentally CC'd me on before I left. It includes a forged invoice she submitted under your name for vendor reimbursement. She used your bank information. I kept a copy, just in case. Now seems like the right time. Olivia," I opened the attachment. A vendor invoice, made out to M. Brooks Interiors, signed with my full name, Evelyn Brooks, in a handwriting I'd never seen before. Fake, sloppy, but real enough to pass. Rosa confirmed it in under 5 minutes. "This is textbook," she said. forgery plus elder exploitation. She forged your name to fake a reimbursement so she could pull boutique money into the LLC and make it look like it came from you. How much was it? $6,450. But the amount doesn't matter. The pattern does. Now we've got another trail. I asked Olivia if she'd be willing to speak to Clara directly. She agreed without hesitation. She always thought I was weak, she said during the call. But I just didn't want to fight dirty. Now I'm done being polite. I knew that feeling, word for word. After the call, I sat by the window with a cup of tea and stared at the backyard. Thomas planted that oak tree the year Daniel was born. I used to think one day I'd pass it down, that Henry would play under it, that holidays would be filled with traditions and familiar smells. Instead, my son tried to sell the land it grew on, while feeding, his wife forged lies and my bank account. I'd buried hope a long time ago. But now, something else was growing in its place. Evidence, witnesses, names. They weren't just losing control, they were losing cover. The voicemail came in by accident. Rosa had asked for Daniel's recent emails and messages to cross-reference a timeline. I logged into our old shared cloud account, the one he'd set up back when he was managing things for Mom, and there it was, a forgotten voicemail, dated 3 weeks ago, marked Archived, Marissa. I almost didn't press play. Some things you can't unhear, but I did. Daniel's voice, flat, calm, controlled. She's too old to fight us. You said it yourself. She still signs everything with a pen. We'll move the rest after Christmas before she figures it out. If we get this second refinance approved under the LLC, we can liquidate what's left and finally buy the lake house. Marissa, she has no idea. She still thinks we're grateful. Laughter. The only thing she's good for now is dying quietly. And I sat there, frozen. Not sad, not stunned, just done. No tears. Tears belonged to someone who still had illusions left. I looked up at the photo of Thomas on the mantel, the same photo that had comforted me through the funeral, the lonely winters, the birthdays Daniel started skipping. I stood up, walked over, took it down, set it gently face down on the coffee table. You were wrong, I whispered to the wood frame. You said he was a good man in a hard season. But he's not hard. He's hollow. I called Clara and played her the voicemail. She didn't say a word until it ended. Then, that's conspiracy. That's intent. And if we can prove financial action followed it, it's over. I want that played in front of a judge, I said. You'll get more than that, Clara promised. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table. No laptop, no paperwork, just me. And silence. And his voice, echoing over and over. The only thing she's good for now is dying quietly. I thought I'd hardened. I thought I was past this. But I wasn't. Something inside me cracked. Not from anger this time, but from a grief so old and deep, it felt like it belonged to another life. I couldn't sleep. I turned the heat up, then down, made tea, poured it out. The house creaked and settled like it was trying to comfort me, or warn me. So I opened the hallway closet and pulled out the old photo box, the one labeled, Daniel, baby to college. I sat on the carpet like a woman at a gravesite. There he was, in every frame. Gap-toothed, wide-eyed, clinging to me like I was the only safe place in the world. One photo stopped me cold. His 5th birthday. He had just scraped his knee falling off the tricycle Thomas built for him. He was sobbing, blood on his shin, little fists gripping my skirt like I was gravity. I remember kneeling, wiping his tears, whispering, I've got you. I'll always have you. How did we get from that boy to this man? How did someone who once sobbed in my arms now laugh about the timing of my death? People love to say blood is thicker than water, but what they never say is, even blood congeals if left in the wrong hands. I didn't raise a monster. I raised a boy. And somewhere between entitlement, resentment, and the sound of his wife's voice telling him he deserved more, he disappeared. That night, I stopped wondering what changed him, and I started accepting what he'd chosen. This battle wasn't about hate. I wasn't seeking revenge. This was a correction, a truth that needed to be told. legally, publicly, cleanly. I would show the courts the truth. I would show the town the truth. And if Daniel and Marissa lost everything, it wouldn't be because I hated them. It would be because they gambled on my silence and lost. I placed the photo back in the box and shut the lid, not out of anger, out of mourning. Because the boy in that picture, he doesn't exist anymore. The woman they tried to erase is still here. But the mother who used to believe in them, she didn't survive that voicemail. And by morning, I would stop pretending she had. I woke up, brushed my hair, put on lipstick, and packed the folders Clara had requested. Today wasn't about grief. It was about clarity. I stood in the mirror and said it out loud, just once. They wanted my ashes. They're getting my evidence instead. I invited them to brunch, not out of forgiveness, out of design. A Sunday, 1 week before Christmas. Community Hall off Main. The same one we'd used for Daniel's high school graduation party. This time, no balloons, no speeches, just tablecloths, coffee, and a line of chairs facing the long folding table. I sent the invitations by hand. To reconnect, to heal, one last family meal. Marissa replied within the hour. Absolutely. Henry will be thrilled. Do you want us to bring muffins or just show up pretty? Rosa nearly choked laughing when I showed her. They think this is a photo op, she said. Exactly, I answered. Dean arrived early with a briefcase. Clara stayed home. She didn't need to be there yet. But Rosa came, earbuds in, phone clutched tight. We're live, she whispered. Private stream, audio only, 24 listeners and climbing. Relatives were trickling in too. My cousin Margaret, Daniel's godfather, even Joyce from my Bible study, the one who always said, your daughter-in-law sure likes to be seen. Perfect. Daniel arrived in a pale blue button-down, holding Henry's hand like a prop. Marissa wore winter white, all satin and smiles. They looked like the successful couple from a holiday commercial, proud, glowing, untouchable. They didn't sit. They posed. Rosa gave me a tiny nod. Mike's picking up fine. I stood at the front of the table. Thank you all for coming, I said. It's been a difficult year, but before we move forward, I'd like to share something with Daniel. He smiled, reflexively, probably expecting a toast. I reached into my purse and slid a plain envelope across the table toward him. Nothing dramatic, no speeches, just a quiet, notes I found in your inbox. He opened it, read the first line. His smile froze. The room didn't gasp. This wasn't television. But there was a stillness, the kind that drops when something ugly enters a polite space. Marissa leaned in to peek. Then she sat back, hard. Rosa's stream picked it all up. The chairs, the whisper of paper, the shift in Daniel's voice when he said, "What is this?" I didn't answer. Dean passed out printed copies to the rest of the table, only to the adults. Slowly, deliberately, refinance notices, LLC filings, one forged signature, highlighted. No one shouted. No one cried. But not one person picked up their coffee again. They came expecting a holiday photo. Instead, they walked into a reckoning. And I wasn't done yet. No one said a word for a full minute. Daniel stared at the refinance document like it was in another language. Marissa glanced around, eyes darting to faces, looking for someone to rescue her with a laugh or a change of subject. No one did. I stayed standing. Before you ask, I said calmly, yes, every document in front of you is real, filed, dated, verified. Daniel finally spoke, his voice tight. Mom, what is all this? A record, I replied, of what you both did. To my house, to my accounts, to my name. A soft gasp from someone down the table. Maybe Margaret. Marissa tried her first tactic. Sugar. Evelyn, I think there's been a misunderstanding. These things are complicated, and I'm sure. Don't, I said sharply. Don't lie. Not here. Not now. Rosa clicked her pen. A quiet signal. The stream was holding, 57 people listening. One of them was Clara. Dean stood, walked to the front, laid out the paper trail like breadcrumbs across the table, one sheet after another. Refinance confirmation. With the LLC, Daniel and Marissa formed without me. Bank records showing equity cashed out. Signatures filed on my behalf, with no authorization. The boutique renovation reimbursements classified as home improvement expenses. And finally, the printed transcript of Daniel's voicemail. She's too old to fight us. Move the rest before New Year's. Daniel reached for it like he might crumple it, but Rosa was faster. She spoke without looking up. That copy's for everyone. There's another dozen. Marissa's smile had vanished completely. Henry, still seated, still too young to understand, looked between them. Mom, what's wrong? No one answered him. I turned to the rest of the room. These are not mistakes, I said. They're not oversights. This was a strategy. A slow, calculated plan to remove me from my home, my finances, and eventually, my memory. Marissa exhaled loudly. This is so dramatic. Evelyn, if you felt left out, I didn't feel left out. I snapped. I felt erased. I looked at Daniel. He didn't meet my eyes. This was never about money, I said, quieter now. It was about what you thought I wouldn't do. That I wouldn't speak, wouldn't fight, wouldn't gather proof. Rosa took over. She walked to the front like a courtroom clerk, not a vengeful 20-something with a live stream mic under her jacket. In her hands, a single folder. Inside, the timeline. Everyone here deserves to understand what happened, she said, her voice steady. Because it didn't happen all at once. It happened in pieces, pieces meant to be overlooked. She placed 3 papers on the table. 1. A refinance confirmation, $190,000 equity withdrawal against Evelyn's house. Funds deposited not to Evelyn's account, but to D&M Brooks, LLC. Daniel's jaw tensed. 2. A set of reclassified boutique invoices, upholstery expenses, vendor reimbursements, even structural adjustments. Rosa flipped the next page, side-by-side comparison. On the left, boutique expenses. On the right, Evelyn's property tax statements. Dates matched. Vendors didn't exist. Marissa used boutique reimbursements to disguise what was really a cash transfer from Evelyn's equity, funneled through a business no one else had oversight on. A cousin gasped. 3. Rosa held up the voicemail transcript. Daniel shifted in his chair. I don't think we need to read it out loud, Rosa said. You've heard enough today. But in case you're wondering, yes, it's authenticated, time-stamped, archived, and it matches the plan. Daniel opened his mouth and closed it. 4. Dean stepped forward and slid the last document into place, a printed page bearing 2 signatures. 1. Evelyn's real, registered, notarized signature from a 2020 will. The other, the signature used on the property transfer to the LLC. Next to it, a sworn statement from a certified handwriting analyst. The 2 signatures are not made by the same individual, forgery strongly indicated. Aunt Margaret leaned forward. Forgery? That's criminal. No one corrected her. I looked at my son. The boy I once taught to write his name now sat silent as proof of his lies was handed out like communion. Marissa had gone pale. She wasn't flipping her hair anymore, wasn't explaining anything, because there was nothing left to explain. Rosa turned back to me. That's everything. It wasn't loud, but it was enough. Enough for every cousin at the table to stop defending them. Enough for the neighbors listening on the stream to start whispering. Enough for the polite world they built to begin to tilt, because now everyone knew. They didn't just steal. They planned it. And I didn't just survive. I documented it. They left before dessert. Daniel stood first. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look at me. Marissa trailed behind, sunglasses already on, inside. Her voice barely audible as she told Henry to go wait in the car. Someone opened the door for them. No one said a word. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel anything, really. Just done. Rosa came to my side and tapped her phone. Stream ended. Saved to secure archive. 58 total viewers. Some of them were Marissa's boutique clients. I nodded. Dean was already organizing the paperwork into folders. Clara says to meet at her office at 10 a.m. tomorrow. She's moving forward with the asset freeze request. Emergency injunction. Judge won't need much time. I sat down slowly. Will it hold? Dean met my eyes. You gave her everything she needs. That evening, Clara called. I've already submitted the motion, she said. Voicemail and forged signature were enough. The live stream confirmed pattern and public deception. The judge approved the freeze on all jointly held accounts under D&M Brooks LLC and both individual accounts pending review. I let that sit for a moment. All their assets, frozen, overnight. Also, Clara added, I filed to nullify the deed transfer, based on the forgery and lack of competent consent. Will it go to trial? I asked. Almost certainly, she said, but it'll be public and permanent. Rosa texted me a screenshot. Marissa's boutique page. Temporarily closed. Staffing and supply issues. The comments weren't kind. You had no problem taking care of your mother-in-law's money. Elder abuse isn't a trend. Did you steal the furniture too? I didn't reply. I didn't need to. For once, the world wasn't gaslighting me. It was watching them. The courthouse smelled like dust and polish. Small room, no cameras. But the gallery was full. Second row, Margaret and Joyce, hands folded like they were in church. Back row, 2 boutique customers, whispering behind printed court dockets. Even Henry's old teacher showed up. She didn't say a word, just nodded at me when I walked in. Marissa saw them too. She couldn't hide it. The twitch in her cheek when she noticed someone filming her on their phone, pretending it was a selfie. Daniel walked stiff beside her. No blazer this time. No smile. They looked like defendants. Because they were. Clara stood with quiet authority. We are here to seek formal restitution, she began. For financial abuse of a vulnerable adult, for property fraud, for identity forgery, and for unlawful misappropriation of personal assets through concealment and coercion. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Rosa was seated 2 rows behind, laptop open. Dean sat on the far left, briefcase ready. Everything we'd gathered, notarized, time-stamped, witnessed, was about to be read into public record. The judge reviewed the file with furrowed brows. This refinance request, filed through an LLC, did not include Ms. Brooks's authorization? No, Your Honor, Clara replied. And the signature provided has been proven, through certified analysis, not to match any of Ms. Brooks's legal documents from the past 20 years. She passed the analyst's report forward. The judge read silently, then nodded. Daniel shifted in his seat. Marissa crossed her arms. Tight. Defensive. Next came the voicemail. The courtroom clerk played it aloud. Daniel's voice filled the room. She's too old to fight us. We'll move the rest after New Year's. Someone behind me whispered, Oh my God. I didn't flinch, didn't smile. Marissa leaned toward her lawyer, whispering in panic. Too late. Then came Olivia. Sworn in, steady as a stone. I received an invoice with Evelyn's forged signature, she said, holding the email printout. It was for a vendor that doesn't exist. I didn't want to believe it, but after the boutique account stopped adding up, she looked right at me. I knew it was real. The judge didn't call recess. Didn't raise his voice, just sat back, looked at Daniel and Marissa and said, The pattern of intent is well established. This is not a misunderstanding. It's calculated fraud. Outside, the courthouse steps were waiting, not just for me, but for them. Someone asked Marissa, Do you have a statement for your clients? She pushed past. Daniel didn't speak. And me? I walked out steady, back straight, purse in hand, and behind me the truth, finally public. 2 weeks later, the ruling came in. Delivered in a thick envelope, I opened with steady hands. Clara was already on the phone when I unfolded the first page. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. They lost. Judgment summary. County Probate Court, $150,000 restitution, full repayment of funds withdrawn via the LLC. $45,000 damages for exploitation, mental distress, and unlawful transfer of title. Immediate reversion of full property ownership to Evelyn Brooks. Court-supervised community service, 400 hours each. Permanent fraud markers on both their financial records, flagged in state databases. No prison. I hadn't asked for that. I didn't need bars. I wanted exposure. And I got it. Their accounts were emptied to meet the judgment. Rosa sent me a screenshot. Marissa's boutique credit line closed. Site taken offline. Yelp flooded with reviews from women my age who now knew the truth. One of them wrote, "She targeted her own mother-in-law. What do you think she'd do to a stranger?" Another, "Trust broken is trust gone. Shameful." Daniel moved out of their townhouse, back into a rented condo across town. Marissa was seen applying at a chain furniture store, the kind she used to roll her eyes at. Clara smiled when she told me, "Their credit's so wrecked they can't refinance a bicycle right now." As for me, I stood in my own kitchen, lights warm, tea steeping. The title had come back in my name. No tricks, no co-signers, no LLCs, just Evelyn Margaret Brooks, sole owner. Dean brought it to me himself, grinning like a man who just finished balancing a 20-year ledger. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about being seen, about standing up and saying, "You don't get to narrate my decline. You don't get to bury me while I'm still breathing." They tried to reduce me to ashes. They joked that I'd be the best gift under the tree, dead and gone. Instead, I unwrapped the truth, document by document, lie by lie, and I left it there for everyone to see. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If your own family tried to erase your worth, not just socially but financially, would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you fight back and show the world the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're listening from.